I am not sorting these in any specific way this time, so.
Okay.
Okay. There was like a presentation mode last time, right?
Mm-hmm. It's now, is the button hiding?
No, I'm just... There we go. Cool. Oh, wait. No, because the problem was I couldn't edit in presentation mode. That was the problem.
Ah.
I think you set in edit mode. That thing last time.
Yeah. We'll do that. And then we'll do this. Yeah, I think that should work. And then we'll do this. Oh, good. Thank you for that. So, we're so clever. We're so cute.
We're so professional.
Pay no attention to the wizard behind the curtain. And it's doing the thing again. Let's try that one more time. This is what you get for being a jackass. So, there, I swore, but it's been a minute and a half, so we're good. All right. Woo! Professionals. Yeah, look at us. Woo! Thank you, director. I appreciate that. You'll get yours one day, so I believe in karma.
I control the buttons for the most part, so I'll be safe.
Yeah, for the most
Revolution!
Part. Right?
Yeah, but first you need all the passwords that I can't even remember.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Luck. No comment. The Russians are listening, so no comment. But all right. Well, so you guys don't get enough of tier lists, and apparently 10 proper villains wasn't enough. So we had to go into the dregs and find some mooks to add to the list that don't belong to be here, so we could continue to argue and rate these.
Do you mean there's still plenty of good villains missing?
Well, apparently we have this category
name
of there's
three.
Henchmen and cannon
name
fodder
three
that
good
don't
villains that are
qualify
missing.
Yes.
Lara's not there.
Okay, not a villain.
Not there.
If Marcone's not a villain, Lara's not a villain.
I think
if Marcone is a villain, then Lara is the villain. What the
Definitely. By Justin's own metric, Lara is a villain.
So which is it, director? Are you agreeing with me that Marcone is a villain?
No, I don't think Marcone belongs on there, and I don't think Lara belongs on it either. But I am saying that we are being hypocrites about it.
What villainous things has Lara done?
Like eating people? She eats people.
Okay.
That's your line. That is your line of it being a monster.
That's what I've been telling you, though. Every vampire eats people. So next we're going to do the Dresden Files villains list, and we're going to put fucking Kyle and Kelly on it because they eat people. And then we'll put the Tigress on it because she's a ghoul and she eats people. Just because they eat people means they're bad guys doesn't mean they're villains. It doesn't mean that they're driving the story in any measurable way. That's what I'm arguing.
But you don't think Lara and Lash drives the story? Or drove the story? Or have impacted the story in a meaningful way?
Not their villainous tendencies. Put them on where do they rate next to fucking Nicodemus? Okay. Or Nemesis in this case, right? That's what I'm saying. These guys don't rate. That's what I'm saying. Okay, yeah. At the end of the Heat Death of the Universe, when it's just Dresden and Lara and she's trying to eat him, fine. But her villainy is not her defining characteristic, okay?
Neither is
she's
it
a pain in the ass. Yeah, it kind of is. Everything Marcone does is bad. Lara is manipulative and shit, and she's trying to drive politics and whatever, but that doesn't necessarily mean just straight up hey, pick your favorite politician here, but she's not any more evil than the people you vote for every November. I'm just saying, and we got plenty to say about that sort of thing too, but I'm just saying she is not exceptionally any kind of weird. I wouldn't put Madeline on this list, and she was way more villainous than Lara was.
I was thinking we should have put Madeline and Madrigal on these lists because both of them tried to kill Dresden.
Oh, right. Is that it? Dresden's killed Dresden. Molly killed Dresden. She should be a villain now? Like, Jesus Christ. Kincaid actually did kill Dresden. Like, he's not a villain either.
Assisted suicide's not the same thing as murder.
You guys are very myopic. Kincaid murdered him. There is no way, shape, or form where you can argue that. Just because he asked for it doesn't mean he wasn't murdered.
Like, asking for it changes a lot. Consent matters, Justin.
Not in murder. There. So. I
don't know.
So weirdly, consent matters in cannibalism, but not the murdering part. So, like, you can chop off your body parts and feed it to somebody else. Don't ask too many questions why I know this, but like, you could do that all day, but you can't actually like murder your person to eat them. So.
Yeah, but I mean, there is a lot of thought. I don't know how much in the US, but certainly here, and I think in other countries too, about the legality of assisted suicide.
Right. So, I mean, you can't call it assisted suicide when it happens at 1,000 yards with a sniper rifle and you couldn't know by virtue of what is going on. That's not assisted suicide. Like, not in any there is dignity and there is medical like procedures involved in, you know, the dignified self-assisted suicide. That's not what we're arguing against. Don't fucking muddy the waters with something that's legitimate. Dude got himself clapped at 1,000 yards by a fucking assassin. He didn't go to the hospital and say, please fill me full of morphine until I drool to death or whatever happens. Like, those are not remotely equivalent, in my opinion.
But, I mean, he did hire that assassin, so that is, I would say that is assisted suicide.
No. No. Like, that's a false equivalency, in my opinion. Like, wildly false equivalent. So, like, I can't even think of, you know, like a possible comparison, which is rare for me. So, anyway, let's talk about some of these Jokers and how fucking Denton gets to be next to Dracula, because I can't wait to explain that, you know.
Would you like to start with Denton?
Can we put him down here? Where did Victor Sells wind up? There we go.
Well, he's a little bit better than Sells.
Let's start.
Is he better than Sells? I mean, he's certainly more interesting. He has more nuance to him.
He had more of an understanding of the dangers of getting caught.
Ooh.
I think he's actually more interesting than Sells. So maybe we should actually move Sells down to E. Because I remember Sells, and I didn't remember Denton.
Like, okay, so you don't like Full Moon, right? Who are the bad guys in Full Moon, Andreas? I know you hate the book. Who are the villains?
There's the biker gang. There's the FBI. Denton, right? And his partner.
Like Denton. Like, he's the villain for Full Moon, so that's the main reason why he's on this.
I didn't remember him by name. I remember the FBI guys, right? I just didn't remember him by name. I was like, FBI guys.
Yeah, he's the leader of said FBI guys.
Yeah,
I know. Yeah, and this entire book, just, you know, for those who like to pretend that it didn't exist, Marcone is under suspicion of being the villain the entire time because the FBI are trying to set him up as the fall guy, and he was directly an adversary of his name's right on the tip of my brain, but of the Loup Garou, McFinn. Right? Because they were competing, McFinn, because they were competing business interests. So again, you know, Marcone's villainy. So.
Him being a victim of a conspiracy to set him up?
A believable victim. It's not like they tried to frame Molly, you know, like, oh man, she got framed, therefore, like, she's a villain.
It's a great conspiracy when it's believable.
Marcone's a villain before he got set up. That's why it's believable, right? Like, you know, they're like, Marcone, you killed him. And he's like, you're going to have to narrow it down for me. I've killed lots of people. Like, it's just like Laura would say. They just pulled somebody off the street and said, haha, it was you the whole time. You know, like, we're going to argue. Today's a fighting day, I can tell it.
Yeah, you are in fighting spirits today, even before all of this.
Does he rate better than Bianca? I say no. I say no. Fine. He can rate better than Victor Sells.
She did cause a giant war.
I'd be okay with, Victor and Denton going like lower even. Like,
I would actually be okay with that.
Do you have any disagreements?
Well, usually the tier lists end at D, so I just feel like
E
and F usually, I think.
Yeah,
so I wouldn't even have put the other ones on there, more or less.
It was the template.
Usually some people add like the special hell tier sometimes. Like they don't rate
better. So there's still got to be an F tier. I mean, come on, like no participation trophies.
But there's just something wrong with having an E tier, in my opinion. So this makes me feel better.
Okay, congratulations. We can agree on that. There, middle ground. Hooray! We can still be friends.
Yay, world peace.
Fucking who else shouldn't be on this list? Maeve definitely shouldn't be on this list.
Oh no, hold on.
Yeah.
Maeve is a villain.
No, she isn't.
Yes,
Maeve is a puppet. Maeve is a puppet.
Maeve knew exactly what she was doing and what she was going to get out of it, and she thought she was going to get out on top.
Prove it.
Everything of Cold Days?
No, because she's a puppet by then.
Before, happy to be able
how many
to
of
lie.
the people we've already got on there are puppets then?
That's what I've been saying, right? Like
no, but like last week too. Do you
want me to answer your question, or do you want to talk? Like,
kind of both.
Go ahead.
But I'll let you answer first.
Victor Sells is pretty much a puppet, but he was at least grabbing power before somebody came and turned him into a puppet. Denton was a puppet. He was a good guy relatively until somebody gave him the things. Arguments for Bianca being a puppet, because possibly at least Ortega, maneuvered her into a position to be a pain in the ass. Lord Wraith got turned into a puppet, but he was somewhat a villain beforehand.
He was actually a puppet before that. Arguably got powers from the outsiders. That was,
or he was happily of his free will making bargains with he who walked behind.
Right. I mean, back in like the 70s, dude was a threat. So I think Cal is going to turn out to be a puppet. I think he's going to be one of those, like, he didn't realize he was a puppet, but he was, in my opinion. Nemesis is the puppet master, right? So that's why it's like Maeve is a footnote to Nemesis, in my opinion. Like, we meet her in Summer Night, right? So there isn't any like parallels, because by the time we meet her, Leah's already been infected, because that happens in Grave Peril.
Right.
And she presumably more or less immediately infects Maeve, as far as we know. We don't know what the timeline is, but those two events would have been separated.
Right. We don't know if Maeve is infected as of Summer Night, but we are certain that she's infected as of proven guilty.
Right. And I mean, she fucked off for 150 years, but that doesn't, she's a teenager. She's a Fae teenager. So like,
a perpetual
that doesn't
teenager,
necessarily... That doesn't speak villainy to me. Sorry.
No. That's not the villainy part.
I'm sorry.
Of it. Like,
teenagers are people. You gotta.
Sure, they can be people. They can be detestable people. They're still, sure.
But that doesn't make them villains.
Was it the way she treated the people under her, the changelings?
I mean,
that was pretty villainous.
Even in Summer Night, she was forcibly drugging Lloyd Slate to try to control him because she couldn't any other way. She was throwing glamour at Dresden when she shouldn't have. It was wrong for her to do that.
Again, like, breaking the rules doesn't make you a villain, right? Like, Dresden parks in a no parking zone because it makes him happy to thwart municipal code, right? Sorry, deadbeat, paraphrased, but like, that doesn't make Dresden a villain. So Butters is like, oh man, you've never been the same since you picked up that coin. You've been parking in a no parking zone, Dresden. What's gotten into you? Like, you guys are like up there with the Knights of the Cross and Paladins. Like, oh man, he parked in a handicap spot. The villain, like Maeve's a pain in the ass, and she broke rules. If you want to talk about her manipulation of Lloyd Slate so far, that's like the best argument that I've had. If you want to talk about that, she probably more or less fed Lily to Lloyd Slate, then we're talking some villainy there.
Oh no, she did.
But like 80% of the rest of your arguments are like angsty teenager, not villain. Right?
Okay, I will give credit to teenagers more than that. Most of them are better than Maeve.
Sure. But I'm just saying, like, the ones that aren't better than Maeve still aren't villains just because, they're acting out or graffiti the walls or pour well, like try to seduce Dresden. Like what's the most villainous thing she did in Summer Night beyond like encouraged Lloyd Slate to do evil shit, because that's what Lloyd Slate likes to do.
I mean, that is kind of evil, knowingly unleashing him on the poor changeling kids because it made her laugh. I mean, like, she was using him to torture them for her own pleasure.
Okay. Right. So like I said, we got 2 examples.
Those are
so not exactly like okay, so we'll put her up in under Bianca. I mean, what? Like, because again, most of her actual evil shit, the stuff where she was effective, we can't sort out from the fact that it wasn't just Nemesis telling her where to be and what to do.
But there is a sense of whether she's going along with it or not. And she was going along with it. Catsmith was fighting it. You can see him fighting it in the end of Cold Days. But from Proven Guilty onwards, we can see that Maeve was happily conspiring with Nemesis. She was so happy conspiring with and cooperating with. She was so happy with the ability to lie. And as she says in Cold Days, because if Mab is taken out, she gets a giant new throne. She wants it so badly. She's happy to do it. She's doing all the wrong, evil things.
So, for a very obvious foil, Aurora, who is also Nemfected at this point in time, right? Who also seems to be going along with whatever Nemesis' plan is Aurora the villain of the story in Summer Night?
Possibly. We could have argued about it, but we didn't put her on the list, did we?
Right, because she's a puppet and she doesn't belong on the list any more than Maeve does. Right? That's what I'm saying. Like, all of those things you just said apply equally to Aurora.
The way that they describe Aurora being in so much pain and so much confusion, it does make her seem more of a victim than Maeve, who was happy to go along with it. Says 2 + 2 = 5 when she's about to murder Dresden.
Okay.
She's acting of her free will and doesn't realize how bad that's going to be, versus Aurora
but she's literally not, though. She can enjoy it, but she literally can't act out of her own free will because she's Fae, and 2 + 2 = 5 is a lie, so she's working against her nature because of Nemesis.
Right. Nemesis gave her the ability to act against her nature, which she was happily doing to the detriment of everything else.
Okay. But you see how that's like not... I don't buy that as a villain, though, right? Like, henchman, lackey, sure, but left to our own devices in a bubble, like, I mean, your cat is a villain. He's plotting to kill you every night, but but he's not going to make the tier list because he can't, like, in most cases. Don't die around your cat, they'll eat you. But seriously, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, okay, sure, great, Maeve's got all these evil, wicked thoughts, and she would totally do these things if she could, but she can't because it was Nemesis. Like, does that not make sense?
I don't think
like, Denton wouldn't have probably done anything evil if it wasn't for the belts. Sorry, go ahead.
I just don't think that because there was someone bigger and better behind the scenes means that they are not villains or bad guys in their own right and not worthy of putting on a list or discussing. Like, I think Aurora could be on there too. She was the villain of the book.
So where would you rate her?
I think Maeve is low B.
A low B. She was better than Corpse Taker.
I would definitely say Maeve is better than Corpse Taker.
I found her more interesting as a character and a villain than Corpse Taker.
She's like the Red Queen. Like, she was titillating as a villain, but, like, that's about it. Like, literally, that was her job, to titillate.
I mean, better than Corpse Taker, though, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not hot for corpses, so that's a no-brainer. I don't need to go back to that tier list and see which, level I am on that. But, so we're going to rate her under Dumorn, but above Corpse Taker?
Yeah, Dumorn is so much more... It's the mystique about him, which means he could go up or down, right? If we learn more. But there's something...
I mean, he's dead. I don't think there's anything more to learn about.
Yeah, he's dead. He's the ED dead.
Yeah, whatever. Though I think those are the most controversial ones out of the way. I think some of the rest of these guys are losers too, but obviously they're all losers because Dresden wins all the time, right? But who do we want to talk about next?
Shagnasty?
Okay.
Who I actually think is there's just something so great about him as a bad guy, even if he's very one note in a way. There's not much complexity to him. I feel like he's just kind of almost just a monster, but a monster with an attitude. But I really do like him as a villain.
Yeah.
I think like I'm thinking also in somewhere in the high B's actually.
I mean, I'd go higher than that. Like, look who's in the A list.
Yeah,
like,
I would put him higher than that.
Shagnasty.
Yeah, I could put him.
Like
I was trying to be conservative.
Like, in a way, he's not really the main villain of Turncoat, right? But he's much more effective, and quite a bit of what happens in the climax of Turncoat is geared around taking him out of the game to the point where a senior council member basically has to do it, right? He beats him in the sense that he drives him off, but like, talking power levels and that sort of thing, like I would put him at least A. And I mean, I could see some arguments for S, but it's just like, it's tough because, we kind of know relative power level, like the Negloshi aren't really anything compared to, I'm sure the Outsiders are much more powerful. What he does to the story, I mean, he roughs up Thomas, but that's not exactly an accomplishment, but he takes out some, minor allies and generally just causes mayhem and, gives Dresden nightmares for a long time. So, like it's hard to rate him lower than Marcone. But
like, some of the things you bring up, he does have some, I would say, some pretty big impacts on the story and the characters for the whole series. Like I think this is where Harry's kind of like gets around to the here werewolves, here's all the facts as I know them, and you can decide.
Right, because he killed Kirby, and then they demanded to know what's going on. They demanded to be able to go help revenge him. Right.
It only took him 8 books to get to there with the alphas after having that same conversation with Murphy. So,
yeah.
He big impact on Thomas's character development, I would say. It's in a way, I mean, kind of supposedly, I would say, because definitely
the next book is changes, and then it's like ignored.
Yeah, it's kind of ignored and changes, and then
we haven't had the Thomas thing. Yeah. I mean, it's because Thomas gets all of they took our daughter, basically the same introduction as Dresden got. Dresden sort of shuts it down because I know this is one of like EG's complaints and that sort of thing, right? But it's like Thomas has been like well, I'm eating people again and I'm being an angsty vampire, and Dresden's like, they took my daughter, and Thomas is like, wait, you have a daughter, and who took her? So it like immediately pulls him out of his bullshit. So it's like, I mean, I get it. We could have angsted that for like 2 or 3 more books, or seen it kind of lapse back around. But instead we go from, they took my little girl to, by the way, I'm eating twins now, or whatever, apparently Nemesis was setting up for him. So, but
yeah.
But the torture that he does go through in Turncoat is still palpable when you understand why he's acting that way at the end of the book. I mean, like, you can fill in exactly how bad it was, and Shagnasty did it for no reason other than because it was entertaining.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
do you guys think, a random thought about Nemesis Turncoat, Justine, that she introduced food as the other girls into that relationship because Nemesis was controlling her, so it was no longer true love, so he would find out by touching her that she no longer burned, so she did that to like undo and then kept doing that, so like to avoid getting caught?
It's a good question, because like you wouldn't think that somebody in possession could be able to do it, but let's go back and have more conversations about Maeve and her free will, right? So we're saying Nemesis doesn't necessarily override your free will, so I guess she could still be in love, at that time. Maybe Nemesis is doing a ride along more than being in the driver's seat like she was in, or it was in Battlegrounds. But yeah.
Like we've kind of talked about before, I think it's kind of unclear. Some characters seems to be taken over, like Cat Sith seems to just be pretending and not be in control. And others seems to be going along with it and enjoying the freedom that it gave them, like Maeve did, which may be a relative power level thing. I don't know. Like Maeve was too powerful to be fully controlled, but he could give her this power of lying.
Or it's
We just
similar
don't know.
to the way that the Denarians work. Of some people are able to withstand. I guess that's kind of what you're saying. Some people are able to hold their own personality still, and other people are just slaves to the Denarian inside it.
Yeah, that's
right. Well, and it's I mean, it's like a willpower thing, and like some of the coin bearers actually negotiate with their fallen instead of just like give into it, right? Because you have Rasmussen or whatever, who was the original. Yeah,
Rasmussen.
So like him and Magog and that sort of thing. But those coins also probably seek out people like that, right? So like that's as much an interplay with the fallen as anything, because clearly like didn't Sonya had Magog, and he was able to cast it off eventually. So it's not like 100% cut and dry. But I think the Cat Sith versus Maeve thing, certainly like Maeve was going with the flow, but she literally couldn't have done a lot of the things that she did do unless she was infected, whereas Cat Sith was dominated, right? And that was Dresden's play. Like Cat Sith was still absolutely bound to Dresden, but Nemesis more or less locked him up with the whole like, hey kitty, go get me a Coke, like that whole scene. Because Cat Sith was fighting it. So anyway, I'd probably, just looking at our list right now, like, without having to shuffle everything around, and maybe there's arguments for it, like, getting back to Shagnasty, I'd probably rate him below Ethnio right now, just looking at our list. But,
I think that's a fair place to put him.
Yeah, I would say that's fair. Yeah.
Like, I think, evilness, style points, things like that, I might put him up there with Nemesis. But as far as like overall impact on the plot compared to some of these other players and that sort of thing, like I wouldn't rate him higher than that at the moment. So
if we want to put or talk about that other villain in that book, that's kind of they're kind of reversed, right? Like Shagnasty, lots of personality and coolness in a way on the page and all that. Not much, like you said, as much big plot impact. Whereas Peabody, huge impact, right? It's infecting the senior council with mind control and all the things that he did, running Dresden's relationship. Lots of impact, but man, I mean, we don't really get to have much from him, really. We have like 2 scenes with him, kind of in the same book, when Harry goes to Edinburgh, and that's about it.
Well, yeah, I mean, but we have a lot of other incidental things, and he still has like a great effect. I mean, he more or less gets introduced all the way back in Deadbeat, as the author of the Earl King, and then Dresden gets to give him shit about it in Turncoat. But then, he's obviously been there for years, manipulating behind the scenes, right?
So he was there in Summer Night, unnamed, but when they're trying to find papers in the meeting with all the whole White Council, he did his bureaucramancy of like, it's this paper and that stack with this thing right there.
Gotcha. That's right. You're right.
So unnamed, and then Butcher took the opportunity to try to fix his German and give him shit for it in Turncoat. So it was a pretty good patch up.
Right. Yeah. So Binder. Look, I love me some Binder, but he's a henchman. Like Binder's, he's literally a mercenary. He's not evil.
Is he a villain?
So,
I
don't really think he's a villain, but he would certainly be on any list he would be on. Almost, he would be an S tier because he's a compelling character.
Not for cardio. He's not S tier at cardio. All right, so all right, yeah, okay. So anyway, I don't know. Peabody's a tough rate because he's certainly more impactful than a lot of these guys, even if he didn't show up a lot, right?
Yeah.
But I think in reality, I would probably put him somewhere in the top of B, personally.
Right. It's hard to have an animosity to that character specifically.
Oh no,
compared to some of the other ones. Oh yeah, I mean, I don't like him. As soon as he said, "My office is a bastion of neatness," it's like, you're the bad guy. There's no way you're not the bad guy right there.
Well, that was a little extreme, but yeah.
And you are untidy.
Exactly. It's just like that kind of reaction. It's like, if you're not the bad guy, I'm throwing the book across the room. But that's like the only real personal level of animosity we have with him versus any of the other characters. What we have more of an attachment, even if it's to hate them, like Nicodemus. So of all the things that he's done, it's almost like we've only been told he's done it and not really seen him doing it. We know something because of the ink as it's shown in Turncoat, but it's so subtle. He did do the Mordstone. Did I get this name right? In the end of Turncoat, right? Mordite.
Yeah, Mordite. Yeah. And I mean, presumably he's the one that put the whammy on Lucio. So
yeah, and so
Andreas should just want to burn him at the stake for that. So
yeah, motherfucker.
Right, but we get told about it, and it's less about him being someone to fear. It's more like, there's this giant bullet we just dodged. Sort of. Kind of.
I mean, you could say that, but I mean, yeah, I think so. He's a villain in okay, Shag Nasty, he's going to eat your face and he's going to feed you your kids or something crazy,
die screaming
evil,
in nightmares
right?
at the whole time.
Right. Peabody is existential because the real dread from Peabody comes from Ebenezer when he's talking about it towards the end. I'm pretty sure it's Ebenezer. It might have been Listens to Win, but the whole how many decisions did we make over the last several years during this war that he subtly influenced? How many people died because we sent them on an ambush or not enough supplies or whatever else because of Peabody's subtle influence, right? And that's the kind of shit that certainly would keep an old man like Ebenezer up at night, right? Ebenezer's used to fighting monsters. He's not afraid of Shag Nasty. He doesn't have a nuke, but he will drop a mountain on him.
Of paperwork.
Well, I mean, you could make that joke, but he's afraid of the decisions he made, right? He's afraid of getting young kids killed, young wizards killed.
Right, but even without the influence to the elder people council, senior council, God, names are hard today. Even just like the Battle of Sicily and all that, or where Camp Kaboom was, leaking information is just as bad, and all of that things that we have seen it for several books, but linking it then to this one entity who's obsessed with neatness becomes a bit harder.
Right.
We don't hold him responsible for it. We're holding his puppet masters responsible for it.
Right. Well, yeah, let's not get down that argument again, because apparently that doesn't matter. So B+, any disagreements? Strong disagreements? Andreas?
I'm thinking, no, I'm okay with it.
I mean, he's certainly more effective than Dumorn in a lot of ways. Again, world impact. Certainly Dumorn impacted Dresden and therefore the story quite a bit. But anyway, should we just keep going down the list at this point?
Sure.
Or is there any other wild? Well, I didn't order them in any kind of thing because I'm looking at it. It's these books are out of order, but I went with Kukulkan. It's not his real name. We argued about that in the pre-show as well. But the Red King, Kukulkan.
We could put the entire Red Court.
This is right. I mean, if we put the whole Red Court, then I think they'd be somewhere up in the A tier again. Like, I'm having trouble not putting everybody in the A tier, but it's like the Red Court were a huge pain in the ass for like
Red
most
Court
of the series.
rates way higher than Kugelon himself, who is a C tier.
Right. Yeah, because Kugelkan, even more than Peabody, in my opinion, like if you want to take like tell don't show, then he's responsible for shaping the like Mayan civilization, after a point, and just like there's so much history and evil and all this other stuff that's been done. But then if you want to take like the book series, it's like, well, he looked like he was drunk on blood half the time, and then it turns out that was an act and he was really strong, and it's like, okay, well, that was like 5 pages a chapter, something, so it's just like,
yet he was
if
actually
wanted this,
addicted to blood, had given in.
I mean, presumably, for sure, but like he wasn't as far gone as everybody wanted to believe he was, right? Because that was a ploy, because he knows that his retainers are going to try and off him at some point. So it was like a cunning tactic on his end. But like, that's all well and good, but I mean, fuck, you guys are gonna make me rate him against Maeve, but I would put him down in C right now. Like, I don't know what else to add to him, right? Like, he was in one book, we got a bunch of little flashes of insight, but we didn't actually see him do anything super cunning or clever that we could like lay at his feet, right? Like, it wasn't necessarily his master plan to do this, that, or the other thing, and he ultimately got betrayed by his quote unquote master plan, which was Martin, right? Like,
yeah. And the Red King got the blame for all of the inconsistencies of the Red Court during the war. Of like, this is why you're aggressive, and then you pull back and do nothing, is because he's going crazy. Versus like Ariana would have probably been much more bloodthirsty about it.
Yeah.
I mean, Cody hates this guy apparently, so. Right, yeah. Like, got killed by your own loaded gun. Pretty bad, but not worse than Victor Sells, certainly. Like, C, above or below Corpse Taker, I'd go below, but
below. He's almost D tier below Wraith.
Right? Yeah, the problem is he's dead and Lord Wraith isn't. So, just saying.
Room to grow.
Right. All right. Well, this one's going to be a fight. So why don't you just tell us how you'd rate your favorite person, and then we'll go with that character. So, yeah.
Mavra goes S
for sucks. Like,
why
is Mavra S tier?
Because she's so much fun. That's all.
She's a lackey. So,
but she's a good one. She's a great one.
Yeah.
I mean, so what?
Agenda.
See, that's who we should have put. We should have put Listen on this list, especially after Battlegrounds. So, anyway.
Well, there's always part 3.
Yeah.
But okay. Mavra is a lot of fun, even if she is a lackey to Dracula or whatever. She's still very capable on her own. She's very intriguing as being a bad guy. We get to see her a decent amount of times, actually, for being a reoccurring bad guy.
Sure. She survives. Importantly,
she does survive. She's very creepy in grave peril, and then blood rights, and then the way that she and Dresden had to handle each other in Deadbeat was a lot of fun.
Right.
Yeah, basically, when Dresden says of like, I don't want to hear your spiel, just get to the point. Okay, we shall embrace brevity. Give me the word of Kemmler, and walks away. Loved it so much. And then in Battleground, when she isn't supposed to be there, she's, oh, it's you, when we have necromancers out of nowhere. It's lovely. Love her so much.
Right. Andreas, anything to add or detract?
I think the director has a lot of good points. Her... Yeah, I mean, is she S tier or is she A tier? She's up there, I feel like. I can't really think of anything that really.
Her boss is still on this list, so we're gonna have to.
We can go up there too. That's fine.
I would say high A tier.
Okay. I mean, I'm looking at the list. Like, I don't know. I think she rates less. I'd go lower than that actually, because it's like I think ultimately, like she's there, she's present, etc., but she's been less impactful than Nicodemus or Cowl, for example, right?
She's not below Powell. She's not.
I mean, so she was there at Bianca's party, so she was involved with Bianca being in the whole position of the party.
Yeah. She was her sorcery teacher, so
yes. Deliberately getting involved with the whole issue of Susan and all that too by threatening her. And then with the One Ear and Blood Rights, of like going from Blood Rights to Deadbeat, setting up that 2 little book arc of her of finding the blackmail for Murphy, and I don't know, just like
I think that's a very strong indication of, what you feel about Mavra, her little 2-book arc. Like, okay, she appeared in back-to-back books, which is a lot for most of these villains.
That little arc of like, here's a problem you have to deal with, and now the fact that you dealt with it is going to come back and bite you in the ass.
Right,
like
because of the pictures.
Exactly. And then the like, you can't win for losing type of problem that the Dresden Files is built on. It was just very fun.
Okay, no, Cody. Lots of people on this list are lackeys for somebody else. That does not mean it's not an argument. Low C, she's a lackey. That's not really an argument. That we could put everybody in low C then, because they're almost all.
I mean, that's what I've been saying, but
yeah, I know.
I got overruled. So
I think below Nicodemus. Not lower.
I mean, neither the director or I am happy about that, but at least it's like one space for me. So I know you want her in the S tier, but let's be reasonable. Like,
I am being reasonable.
She says, smiling, semi-menacingly. I'm totally reasonable right now.
I'm extremely reasonable. What are you talking about?
Oh, are you not gonna? There we go. I was like, you've got to have a multi-select.
And I don't think that worked.
Oh, what? Where did that other picture go?
It behind the other one.
I love technology when it's like do the exact same but twice, and then it'll work the way that it should have worked in the first place. So, that's what Andreas suggested, and we were unhappy with, but at least that means it's a compromise.
She does nothing of real consequence for Cody. Sometimes
so far, she's still out there. Like that's. I mean, I think that's an important thing.
He was crippled for several books with his hand. He wasn't able to use fire.
Right, it was really holding him back. So
he wasn't able to light his candle spell.
I think like an important thing to know about the A tier, for example, is that only one of the characters in the A tier could be considered neutralized, let alone they are all alive, right? And so it's like it's hard because I'm looking at the A tier and it's like, I mean, maybe that tier should be broken up a little bit, right? Maybe we should bump some people down and we should split that up because like not everything can be A tier. But like compared to this, Maeve's dead, Demorne's dead, Peabody's dead, Corpse Taker's dead twice, Kukulkan's dead, and his entire race. Like, so, Mavra may not be
really
as
got
effective.
That Kukulkan good.
Yeah, right. Mavra may not be as effective as like some of the other villains and whatever, but importantly, she belongs in the A tier because she's still alive. So, which we might as well talk about Dracula since we've got that all primed and ready to go anyway, because he's her boss. So,
and he was so much fun.
Boo! I don't want to put him at the top of A tier, but compared to
then
everybody else, I'm kind of
just
feeling
put him
it.
at the bottom.
No, I don't.
S.
I don't care about that. I'm just like, oh, okay, I see what happened. I have to click each of them, shift click them. But I mean, like, no, I'm just like, because talking about still being alive and still being out there, I mean, he's still not neutered because like my headcanon and presumption is that Nicodemus is drowning in a bottle somewhere, right? So he's still out there. He's still going to be a pain in the ass, but I don't expect he's going to trigger the apocalypse.
Book 20, alcoholic Nicodemus shows up.
Oh, absolutely.
Completely ruined.
I absolutely, like, I want to see him stumbling around with a bottle in a brown bag and slurring his speech and, like, throw the bottle at Dresden. Like, incoherently random.
You son of a bitch, Dresden.
Yeah. you made me kill my daughter or something. Like he's going to be mad about that, and somehow it's going to be Dresden's fault because Nicodemus can't take ownership of his own, decisions.
But Nicodemus did get the cup, so maybe he's just drinking out of it.
Yeah, that's what he is. He's drinking bad whiskey out of the Holy Grail.
He has taste. He would go find the good whiskey and then just drop himself in the distillery.
It doesn't matter. He's
dignified.
What are his assets now? What does he care?
He has
I'm just saying,
fucking Holy Grail. That's what his assets are.
But that's nothing. Like it's not like he could go to the liquor store and wave the Grail and be like, "Give me your top shelf whiskey." Okay,
he still has lackeys.
I'm sure he has money.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I say no. I say he would have abandoned all of that. That's my headcanon. I know it's too far, but I totally expect we're going to be so excited to see him in book 20, and he's just going to be like a total wreck. That's what we're going to get. Like maybe we'll have what's her face? What's his wife?
Tessa.
Tessa, thank you. I wanted to call her Trisha. There's somebody that definitely shouldn't be on this list, but you guys would think is a villain anyway. So Trixie Vixen. So.
Oh, Trixie, no, but Tessa does belong on
Oh,
this
wait.
list.
Oh, I'm sorry. Trixie was a step too far. Now we're being ridiculous.
I mean, if you're talking about henchwoman, boobs,
yes,
whatever.
I'm the one who's held that line the entire time. I know where I stand.
Oh,
Any arguments with...
She can go on the F tier. It's okay.
Yeah. Top of A, Dracula, better than Marcone. I don't think the director's going to argue that. Better than Nicodemus.
More villainous, certainly. I mean, he
more villainous. I think Marcone is
way more badass in a fight. I mean, he got a grizzly dropped on him, and the biggest lightning bolt in the history of lightning bolts. Like, yeah, I wish we'd seen more. Just overall.
Yeah, so that's another thing that's kind of similar with Cal. Is like we want to put a lot of things on him, but we haven't gotten to see much of it yet.
But I think that's bullshit. I mean, we certainly know, like we certainly know Cowell and Peabody would be in the same vein for that, but we can attribute a lot more to Cowell, in my opinion. Like we could speculate on Peabody's impact over the last several years, but like at the very least, like we don't even know what Cowell's name is, for example. So like, and not even just like, like obviously it's Simon Petrovich, right?
Yeah,
but
we know what
I'm not talking about like his true name. I'm talking like, does he call himself Cowell? I don't, or like Dresden just calls him like
Cowell.
Well, no, like Dresden calls him Darth Bathrobe, right? Like I don't imagine Vittori, what's his face from White Knight, like phones up and says, "Hey Cowell, guess what? I just killed a bunch more Muggles." Like that's not. Like, that's the thing. We don't know anything about him, but what we do know is that these two hooded figures keep showing up and doing shit. They presumably gave Victor Sells the idea and or the formula for 3-Eye. They gave Denton the belts. They gave Bianca all sorts of crazy shit, including giving Leah, Morgana's athame. They stole Mouse's brother, those sons of bitches. Like,
yeah.
In just about every book, they've done something, right? And we did that as an episode or 3 or 7. Who knows how long that one took us? But we talked about how like basically every book you can see their influence, and like it's circumstantial evidence in the sense that it's like you couldn't necessarily do it in the court of law, but we know it's them, right? It's not like Peabody where it's like, oh man, what did he do for 8 books or whatever? It's like the same people with the same description showed up and did these things basically always. And, Cowell, at least roughed up Dresden in Deadbeat. That's not exactly anything fancy or special, but, he almost kills him, outright in White Knight, in the deeps. So we haven't seen him since then, right? That's right. Kind of the rub there. So, but yeah, Vittorio calls him Master. Thanks, Cody. Yeah, so it's just like, I mean, that's generic, right? But that's what I'm saying is like, isn't Cowell more his nickname? I don't remember if he refers to himself as Cowell. So
I think,
whereas like Kumori,
what is he referred to as in the conversation between Kumori and Dresden?
I think they're using the pseudonyms as if they're names, Cal and Komori, and
Okay.
I think the other necromancers call that too. I think Corpse Taker said something about Cal, or some one of the other ones just had referred to him by that. I think so. Like that is the name that he's been known by.
Right.
But so we have one instance of really meeting Dracula, and it was a lot of fun. Right. And then he gets bolstered by his association with Mavra, in my opinion. But then what?
Right. He's got Steed. The other two got.
Don't know if he has him.
No, they got taken.
Yeah, the other two got taken and presumably turned to Black Court vampires. Then Steed went through a gate somewhere. Don't know where that was.
Neither does Butcher, but you know.
Where did he go?
Outside.
Can't wait to see him again, and him trying to be all posh and proper, and also probably just dripping blood and everything's falling off of him.
Right. Yeah, and I think, importantly, Dracula, so he took out at least 3 wardens that we greatly respected, almost a 4th, crippled him at least. He went toe-to-toe with a being of basically pure magic and a senior council member, right?
Mm-hmm.
Certainly his power level and his ability to potentially inflict more damage in the future versus like his impact to the story, right? That's kind of what we're stuck between. Like,
right. Him hinting at being the whole Starborn thing of like, well, if he's a Starborn, what does that mean? This is super significant. And it's just being like neon sign of this is important, but we don't get to know yet.
Right.
It's hard to place him.
Yeah. Comment here saying Cal asked him to call him Cal. So yeah, it's been too long since I've read it apparently, but that sounds about right because they're outside of Bach order books, right? When they're having that conversation, and okay. Yeah, it's tough because like impact to the story, I think he would rate, in the low A's, but I think, power level, continued mayhem, stuff like that. Allies that he's taken out of the fight, and the fact that he's Mavra's boss puts him still pretty up there. So
I'm okay with the high A.
Okay.
I don't think there's any. There's also there's some great personality to him. There's like, even though we haven't seen that much, like there's the power level of him is insane, right? Like we've seen a lot of these people he fights there like cut loose, like listens to when cutting loose in that short story where Dresden's like, it was unfair to the ghouls, and just like there's hundreds of them and he's just like takes them out. Like he's powerful. Dresden, extremely powerful. The other wardens are no slouches either, right? Like this is
not that we saw that, unfortunately. Like I wouldn't have said so, right? But it's tough to say because it's like, wasn't Mavra like the least of that inner circle?
She was the drummer
boy,
which basically means she was the least powerful.
She was the drummer, but she was also the most intelligent because the other ones were trying to do other stupid things, and she was saying, "Don't do that. He won't like that."
Right. Well, I'm just like it tears me up a little bit because I would have wanted the wardens to make a better showing, but they basically just got got over leveled and rolled, because if Mavra would be a challenge for Dresden, in my opinion, right? That would be a duel, to see for sure. I don't know if she'd be like the toughest thing that he's fought, but she'd be up there, right?
She's
and
clever.
if she's the least, and you've got like 4 or 5 others additional to that, it's like just the wardens were out of their depth. They had, they just didn't have a chance, but it makes them look like juniors, right? That was kind of the problem I had with the fight. It's like I felt like they got rolled so fast and so hard that it made them look like a bunch of punks, whereas like these were like senior wardens by now, theoretically. Like they're certainly not Dresden's level, but they were all veterans. They all they were the veterans of the new wave, right? Because they were kids in Deadbeat, so. But anyway. we've talked about everything but Dracula. So where do we want to put him in relation to like the A tier? Do we want to put him all the way at the top? Do we want to slot him in behind somebody?
So I would maybe between Cal and Ethnu, because we've seen Cal more.
Okay.
We've had one scene with Dracula. We've had one book, 2 books, whatever, Ethnu, Enya. Really got to rename that. So it's just so the amount that we've seen him and attached to him versus the amount of destruction that she's done, and he's done things over thousands of years. I don't know. It's just, I don't really have a good reason. Just like, stick it there.
I don't think that's a bad place to put him, but also, sorry, I also think he could go higher. But I think that's not. I don't think it's a bad place to put him there. Between he's above Ithri, her for sure. Above Cal, Mavra, and the others, I don't know, just because we know them so much more.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, certainly room to grow. Let's just go with that for now, and then it comes down to the fact that his story's not done yet. So certainly he's going to be more effective than Ethnu. He probably even contributed more to the story than Ethnu. It's like the whole book is about her, but at the same time, all she does is like throw a fit, destroy some Chicago. Like, come on, that shit was falling down anyway. But yeah,
sinking into the swamp, right?
Yeah, right. The first Chicago. Anyway, do we do Corb and just go through from here?
Sure.
Or do you guys want to talk?
Yeah.
All right.
Corb can be C.
Yeah. At best.
At
Yeah,
best,
C is for Corb.
The most interesting about Corb is kind of what GM decided to do with building him up and building up the nation, and then being him a whole, just being a puppet. Like, that's kind of the most interesting part about Corb.
Yeah. I mean, puppet, or honestly, even like supplicant, right? Because like he's got his own will, but he lashed himself to Ethnu, right? He gave her his chain, type of thing. I'm just calling that out as a difference between what Nemesis does, right? Nemesis takes you over, and he was absolutely like, yeah, sure, Ethnu, you're the boss. Whatever you say goes. He's got a will of his own, kind of, but he's such a slime ball and just not very effective, right? Doing some of the politicking, doing some of the treachery, but it's like...
Yeah, he handled himself very badly in any of that, like the scene between Corb and Listen and Enya, it's like, Listen shouldn't have been able to dominate it so much, and yet he did.
Right. Yeah.
So
join us next in 2 weeks when we put Listen on the list, who is, everybody wants to think he's a lackey, but he's going to be the one that survives and show his true colors there. So
yeah, I don't know.
Bottom of the seas, like,
is he better or worse than the Red King?
I think he's worse in a lot of ways. The only thing he's got on the Red King is he's still alive, isn't he? So
I think so.
Didn't they capture him? So because he's going to be alive at the end of all things, or some nonsense, like that's his destiny.
Oh yeah,
like we haven't spit in the eye of destiny before. So, but like that's the only thing that makes me hesitate. But it's like as far as effectiveness, possibly even power level, like Kukulkan was a tool that got taken out by his own weapon, right? We talked about that, but like Corb's a slime to me. Like I'm just like, I'm completely unimpressed, despite the fact that he's still alive. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It's a bottom of C.
Not even sure that was a good picture for him, but that's what came up. So some of these came out of like TV tropes again, and didn't necessarily grab like every artist along the way. Obviously, like the Maeve one's a hand-drawn picture and whatnot. So, credit where it's due, etc. So everybody wants to talk about Evil Bob. Yeah.
Isn't he so much fun?
Yeah. Here's Bob putting himself in a headlock. So, more fun fan art. Cause I was like, man, I want one of him in the Nazi uniform. Right. But, so speaking of people still potentially running around, causing more danger, mayhem, whatever.
who he would have hooked himself to, and what is he doing, and when will he come back. But we get one book with him partially in it, and it was a lot of fun when we did get to see him. Of just like, why is Bob evil? Oh, there is an evil Bob, and it's separate. And then storming Normandy.
Right. Yeah. Magical Normandy. Like,
Yeah.
That whole sequence, man. Like,
Yeah,
wow.
that was a lot of fun.
You know? Yep.
But I mean, so where does he go? I don't know.
Oh, it's hard.
I mean,
he's either the very top of B or
Right.
somewhere in the A tier. But
I mean, he's
I don't
not
know
more
if he's
villainous than Shag Nasty.
I mean, he might be, but so the part of the problem with Evil Bob is that his nature as an intellect spirit means that he is a lackey, basically, right? Like, he's going to have his own will and whatever, but whoever has the skull or whatever
Right.
at this point, he's going, like, they control him. So
But he's Kemmlerized. Everything that he
Yeah.
will draw on as experiences from Kemmler and Nazis and war and destruction, versus, like, at least regular Bob will try to get boobs in it as much as possible. It's much more
Sure.
benign.
I mean, okay, I'm not going to argue with you on that one. So sure.
Just like, if you tell
But-
Bob, go do A, B, and C, he will make as many people naked as possible until you tell him not to. If you tell evil Bob, go do A, B, and C, he'll cat sit
make
it
as
the
many-
whole way. Yeah, as many.
He won't make as many
corpses.
skeletons as possible. So
Right. So it's like he has his own flavor while doing the orders, just like the Winter Fae.
Right. Yeah. I'd put him at the top of B partially because he's still potentially out there. Oh Jesus! Now we're in trouble. So
Yeah, we are.
There was a lull in the action, so I'm here for the
Yeah.
end.
all right, cool. Where do you slot Evil Bob?
He can be B tier.
Okay.
Okay.
We're pretty much in agreement there. Is there any arguments against him being in the top of B tier?
Is he better or worse
Over
than
who?
Peabody?
Well, so
Oh,
we've
no,
got,
he's not better
this
than
is-
Peabody. No.
Yeah.
No, he's still alive. Importantly, so
Peabody.
Oh,
dead.
is that what today's qualification is? If you're alive, you
We-
get bumped up a rank.
well, we kind of I made that realization, right? I was like, man, A tier is really full, but there's an important commonality between everybody in A tier. They're still alive. So Enya's is the only one taken off the board, so to speak, right? So she's not going to be doing any more villainy as far as we know, but the
Yeah.
rest of them are at least out there causing shenanigans. I wouldn't put Evil Bob up with Shag Nasty, but he's still alive, so top of B tier to me.
Yeah, I don't think he can go above Peabody just because Peabody's results, even though he's still alive, were pretty substantial. And Evil Bob, we just don't know enough about what he did with and for Kemmler and what he's still doing out there. So, I mean, his upward mobility is a possibility, but
Right. Speaking of upward mobility, he was technically working for Corpse Takers, so he's already doing better than that.
Yeah.
But
So-
by both being alive and more effective, right? So,
yeah. So,
but
I mean, he can go above Justin,
Demorne.
I think. Justin's big claim to fame is essentially setting Harry on the path. So that's also part of the reason he is as high as he is.
right.
But I think Bob, because Bob seems like the kind of person that, Justin had him, and he was probably working with the more evil side of him to a degree.
Okay, let's make a difference. There's Bob and Robert. Just try to keep them separate. Because with Bob and
EB.
Evil Bob, and that's still even getting confusing itself. But
Bobby.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would put him just behind Peabody, I think. I think Peabody's results still are more than his at the moment. And then one day, who knows?
Right. I can live with that. Any other comments?
I can live with it.
Yeah,
All
sure.
right.
Don't sound too happy.
Yeah. Did you catch the first part of the show?
I think I caught the part where you guys were arguing whether or not Maeve belongs on the list, but after that, not so much.
Right. Yeah. So does Maeve belong on the list?
I mean, I don't know what other list she would go on.
She's a lackey. Anything that Maeve did, can be attributed to Nemesis. That's my argument. So,
well, yeah, I mean, sure. I guess really all you have to see of her is Summer Night prior to, you know, what her actions would be, and she's definitely villainous in that. She's inept, but she is she's let's say inclined towards that already. You know, it's in her nature as the Winter Lady, and, you know, giving into the bad impulses of it, kind of like Slate with the Night. So there is much the same as Mab. There is much a product of outside factors either way. But I wouldn't call her a good guy by any stretch. So technically speaking, the only thing she would be on would be this list.
Well, but it's kind of the argument between like which one of these guys are puppets, which one of these guys are lackeys, or just straight up like henchmen or whatever, right? And that's the thing. The villains should be the guys giving the orders, driving the plot, you know, running the thing. You know, begrudgingly, we have to put Mavra on here because she's, at least from our perspective, acted independently in numerous occasions, even though she's a lieutenant of Dracula, right? Maeve, I mean, left to her own devices, she's a pain in the ass. That was kind of part of the argument, right? You know, it's like she's got no crazy machinations. She's got no empire. She pokes Dresden because he's the hero and we need an antagonist. Doesn't necessarily make her a villain, right? You know, like that's all. But
I mean, she can act through intermediaries and emissaries too. So it's not like she wouldn't have had no say. You know, like the short story with Jenny Greenteeth and all that.
Right. Well, and see, and that's, I mean, yeah, that's fine, sure, but yeah, all right. I
mean, it's really the difference. I understand the distinction because, you know, someone like Korb, who is a lackey still, but he also has his own kingdom and he has his own agency, quote unquote. So
right.
I understand the difference. If Maeve's not on the list, it doesn't matter. It's just a matter of there's really nowhere else to put her. Unless we do a generic, you know, miscellaneous character list at some point.
Right. Well, once we've done all the tier lists, then we'll have here's the everybody else tier list. So, right. Yeah. But
the other guys.
Again, because she's got mommy issues doesn't make her a villain, right? So, like, yes, I mean, I get it. She's lashing out against Mab's power and that sort of thing. But, you know, I think having kids, for example, just because my boys don't eat their broccoli for dinner doesn't mean that I'm going to put them on the villain list, or, you know, because I told them, hey, don't hit your brother in the face with that sword, you know, foam swords, etc. Doesn't mean that, like, you know, that's what I'm trying to separate here. Like her thing with Jenny Greenteeth, that was villainous. How she treated Lloyd Slate and the fact that she, you know, manipulated people like that, because it seemed from Mab's words that she should stop letting Maeve hire the help because she likes to attract people like that, you know, that sort of thing. Though those were villainous, you know, those were certainly terrible things. But I mean, I think it also separates the fact that it's like, you know, maybe it's the fact that like she's just like a villain versus like, you know, some of these guys are practically super villains by comparison, right? Maeve does bad things to people. Okay. That makes her a bad person, doesn't necessarily make her a villain, right? Like, you know, I think that might be part of what I'm having trouble with there, because, you know, some of these guys have empires. They're making things move. They're torturing people in big ways. They've offed allies. They're trying to bring about the end of the world, you know, things like that. And then Maeve is like a petulant child on steroids, you know, but anyway, so. Blood on his soul.
Better if we just scolded bad guys or something instead.
Yeah,
antagonists.
Right. Antagonists.
But then we wouldn't have so much to argue about. So.
Well, then we'd have to be adding a few more people.
Right. Oh, don't worry. Next time we're going to add, you know, the squires and who else do we got going on the list? Since we're just letting anybody in these days.
Hopefully not the squires.
Because we're going to put Dresden because he doesn't follow parking laws all the time.
Dresden's you can make a credible villain argument for Dresden with just a little bit tweaking to the council argument to actually make sense.
Yeah.
Now, what we should do is we should argue it from Butters' perspective. So put yourself in Butters' shoes.
The fact that Butters isn't on this list is already
Right.
Can we get the blood in the soul out of the way so we
Oh, you trying to go
done
home?
with the tier
You
list?
done? Yeah. You think this means we're done
We're
with the
done
tier
with the
list?
tier list so far.
I was
Yeah.
wondering if
Today.
in 2 weeks we're not going to be doing this for heroes or some shit.
Exactly.
Right. Cody's
For
got me.
today.
Tigress, Redcap, you know.
Oh.
Kyle.
Red Cap is
and-
going to be an
I
argument.
was going
if
to say
you-
Redcap is interesting at least because he did the thing where there's actually more to him, but maybe not.
Well,
Right. Like
Yeah.
I was mean to you because I'm a dick and I like being a dick, but also I was working for Mab the whole time.
Well, that's the
so-
thing. That's a lot of what it's going to be with the Fae. I mean,
Right.
that's why they straddle the line between villain. It's like they do this because it's in their nature, but they do like it. So it's not
Right.
now. It's how much of that is the nature versus nurture. How much of that is compulsion. But people like the Redcap. I mean, yeah, he's still a winter Fae, so he's kind of predisposed to being that way because he has to be. But he still likes it, and he still goes
Right.
out of his way to do it. So
It's a bad father,
we don't know that yet.
at least.
well, supposedly how he treated Ace, I guess.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
who gives a shit about Ace? Ace was a piece of shit anyway.
So again, just the fact that you're a shitty father and like beat up on your kids, in this case in the Fae thing, hopefully not triggering anybody, but like just because you're a shitty father doesn't make you a villain per se.
Well, no,
Like,
I
maybe
think
you're
it's
a villain of
the
his
killing of
story.
random strangers and dipping his hat in their blood is probably.
No,
the
I know.
villain
I'm just
part.
saying, like, but yeah, he's a villain. Look at how he treated Ace. Isn't exactly Exhibit A, right? But yes,
No, that's
the
Exhibit
whole
C.
the whole how he's named the Red Cap might be Exhibit A on why he's the Red Cap. Like,
Yeah.
so
All right, so Genoa Salami goes in C tier because fuck him, he shouldn't even be alive still.
I was thinking B for blood on his soul, but
No.
whatever. So
I mean,
C
he was
for
pretty
crappy.
scary.
he's still coming. He's still
Yeah,
gonna.
that's
he's
the
got-
problem.
Yeah.
And so,
So
is Christmas.
he's more
C
alive
tier.
than all of these other guys.
I find him more interesting than Corpse Taker, less interesting than everybody in B.
Damn it.
So I guess he's top of C for me.
I told you.
Is he more or less villainous than Maeve? That's my cursing now, because like now I have to ask that question.
Oh, is Maeve the
Is it-
Mendoza line? She's what we measure villainous by.
No, I'm
Maeve
just
was an
like, because
argument for
I'm
10
the
minutes
one
at
that
the beginning.
20. Like we made that in like 20 minutes.
I mean,
10 of them were me yelling, but
I don't know. You could make the argument that he is more villainous in the sense that he actively chose this dark path, apparently, of the 3 paths that you're allowed to do as a forest person.
Right.
But
You can do anything you want as long as it's one of these 3 things.
as long as it's these two, there's these 2 good paths over here, and then there's that one that goes with the flickering light. Do you want to choose the flickering light path? Yes, I want to choose the flickering light path. So again, it's how much of that. I mean, he wanted to do that. He did do that. But he's also kind of like, he seems like more of an animal than anything. And I know he's
a
smarter
thug,
than that
for
but-
sure. Yeah.
But he also, I mean, he was given Urseal for a reason, which is like the big friggin' bruiser idiot one. So, I mean, I genuinely don't think he goes above C tier until or unless something else comes up.
Well, yeah, because I mean, to me, he's certainly probably grabbed the coin to elevate his own station, but
Sure.
in my opinion, Nicodemus just wanted a brute, right? He just wanted a bruiser, so he's basically still just a lackey, even though he's sort of doing this like with his eyes wide open. He's getting what he wants out of it, but what he wants is not impressive.
He's also not very clever
like-
in getting what he wants. So there's whatever cleverness you might ascribe to him having been invisible for the first third of the book. But like
right.
Dresden supposedly killed him because he wasn't looking up during the puzzle, which he had full ability to watch how
man,
that pattern was
when your
going
neck-
with a Denarian to be able to help, and he just didn't.
He was
So-
like the Star Destroyers in Tross. They didn't know how to go up. He didn't know how to look up.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
So he's certainly stupider than Maeve, which is hard to say. But
She knew how
Maeve
to
would-
look up.
Yeah.
He's dumber than a puppet. That's pretty rough. Yeah.
Well, he's a puppet.
All
That's
right,
dumber than a
whatever.
puppet.
I say we'll put him in C, but room to grow type of situation, right?
Well,
Andreas,
unfortunately,
are you
yes, because
okay?
he should be
Sure.
dead, but he's
I'm
not.
okay
But
with it.
yes, there
Right.
is room for him to grow.
Not like around or
There might be. You don't know.
Yeah, right. So like, we're gonna see him next time. It's like, oh my god, have you been juicing? You were already huge. Now what are you like? All right. Well, this was something. Yeah.
Any last minute criticisms?
Oh, yeah. Just wait till next time. So when we get to the real, like,
hard-hitting villains.
Yeah,
like Murphy and
this
Butters.
guy like bumped into Shiro in the airport and didn't say I'm sorry or whatever. That's the tier list of villainy right there. So
Alrighty.
that joke will get old eventually.
Yeah,
Eventually. But it is not this day.
Right.
No, it was yesterday, actually. It's already old.
Well then, bye.